everyone. Welcome to the TVT webinar on warehousing in Business Central. My name is Paul Cartwright. With me, I have Claudio and Nikki. So hello, Claudio and Nikki.
Good morning.
I'll crack on into it. Just a bit of housekeeping to begin. So these sessions are can be pretty dry if it's just me and Claudio waxing lyrical about warehousing. So please feel free to drop your questions in as we go. We will stop at the end to kind of mop up any questions, but if you have any thoughts or ideas or anything you want to say, drop them into the Q&A panel in the Teams chat. Nikki, I think you've got the wonderful task of curating those and ignoring the ones we don't like or can't answer. That's basically the way we do it. So yeah, any questions, do it as we flow, as we go through, and we'll come to the questions kind of in context, hopefully. We are recording this session and we will send out the slides, although there's not many slides, to be honest. Slides and a Q&A summary and bits and pieces afterwards. So please don't feel like you have to take screenshots of everything. And obviously, if anything we show you here is interesting, you want us to come and talk to you about it one-on-one, talk to your account manager, talk to us, your engagement manager, I should say. We'd love to talk more about this with you. So with that done, I want to talk about what we're going to cover. So basically, the idea of this session is to give a kind of overview of the advanced warehousing functionality, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute, of Business Central. So we're not talking any particular industry sector. We're not going to this isn't a purely wine focused session. This is a more general functionality in BC for warehouses. The reason we're doing this session, to be honest, is because we think that the warehousing functionality in Business Central is really good and much more powerful, I think, than some people realise. So yeah, we want to give you an overview of it. So the way we're going to do that is, as I said, we're not going to do a bunch of PowerPoint, really. We'll do a few slides at the start. But we want to take you through basically a run through an end-to-end process, a simplified, I should say, not the most complex process, hopefully, in the world, talking you through all the steps from a kind of overview of how a warehouse and its component parts are represented in BC, the levels and the structure of it, and then through a normal process, receive some goods, put them away, take an order, ship and pick them. Actually pick and ship them, I should say. Then we'll talk about movements, general warehouse, moving things around outside of a normal order flow, and then a bit about counting and other functionalities you can do in the warehouse. So that's the idea of this session. We're going to go through end-to-end in software. But first, I wanted to kind of talk about, actually, I should say, I put this slide in for a reason. We're actually going to show you two pieces of software. I wanted to highlight this up front. The vast majority of what we're going to show you, and all the functionality, all the kind of logic, all the stuff will be Business Central. This is purely Microsoft Business Central. This isn't our add-in. It's not a third-party add-in. It's what Microsoft provide out of the box. But when it comes to the mobile device, to actually scanning things or moving things around on a handheld device, we are going to show Tasklet Factory's mobile WMS. So that's this piece of software on the right-hand side. That is a third-party piece from Tasklet. It's works with Business Central, but it's a bolt-on. So I didn't want you to think that this screen you'll see over here a few times is part of Microsoft's offering. It's a bolt-on that we really recommend.
In fact, most of our implementations that have warehousing will have that Tasklet Factory added. It's kind of a no-brainer, hopefully, as you'll see.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Microsoft have done a bit of work actually over the last couple of years just to make the BC phone clients, the thing that runs on Android and iOS phones, a bit more suitable for simple warehousing. But it's really not. It's nowhere near what you'd probably want in a proper warehouse. So yeah, Tasklet's been around. We've been doing Tasklet for forever and a day. It's a really good piece of software. But yeah, everything. I think we do have some implementations, maybe don't use it, but pretty much everyone, if you say, I would like to scan barcodes, Tasklet is the future, where it's the current. So those are the two tools, hopefully not get confused. So we are going to focus this session on a thing called Advanced WMS in Business Central. There are actually 3 levels of warehousing in BC. There is kind of the very simplified, we don't really have a warehouse. We might have some stock. We have a stock room and I want to count my inventory. That's fine. So that's level 1. It's fine. And We see that a lot for even people with large warehouses. You might have, the back of a storeroom in an office or something that you use, and those things are set up as very simplified warehousing with no real management apart from how much have I got of each item. The middle level, which you see compensing quite a lot, is inventory. So this is where you've got located with light structure. You want to know roughly where, well, you want to know where things are, but you're not managing the actual movement within that facility. So yeah, that item is in this bin, but I'm not going to, run big pick runs, and I'm not going to do complex processes within that. Then the thing we're going to talk about is advanced warehousing. So this is the full-on warehouse module in BC. These three things actually layer up. So it's not like you'd go to a separate kind of view of the world. But advanced warehousing does add a lot more features. And fundamentally, the thing it does is it separates the movements and the actions within a warehouse from the financial inventory actions of the rest of the ERP solution. I think that's the thing you'll see us keep hammering home is this is about the separation of duties between a warehouse and the people taking sales orders, purchase orders, finance team. Those are totally separate activities once you turn on advanced WMS. I'd say it's also worth saying that we think that the BC advanced warehousing module goes up to pretty large warehouses. We've seen them in, significant dedicated warehouse environments. However, if you are here from Tesco, probably isn't the software for you. This isn't, there are much bigger, more advanced warehouse solutions on the market. If you are, one of the big supermarket retailers, we'll happily talk to you about, your systems, but probably aren't going to suggest you use this to run your warehouses.
Yeah, one of the advantages is that it's all integrated. So from your purchasing, you don't have to then integrate with something else to send it to the warehouse. You click a button and it's then part of the warehouse. So again, just like CRM in the software, that's one of the main advantages.
Yeah, it's that single view as well. So the person raising the purchase order we'll show you how they can see what's going on in the warehouse and vice versa, without too much overlap. So with that said and done, that's what we talk about. So this is really, we like this diagram. It's a way of illustrating the various different concepts we're going to talk about. As you can see, we've got here, if you consider the dotted line, the actual warehouse facility, you've got goods come in through various reasons. You might have purchase orders meaning you receive goods. It might be a return, a sales return. It might be transfers from other warehouses, other locations. You might have a production facility that brings goods in. But for some reason, stock is arriving through a thing we'll look at called a warehouse receipt. So the and this is a big point of that separation of duty. Purchase order is the reason you're getting something. The warehouse receipt handles the getting of something into your facility. And as we flow through that, obviously we'll talk about putting things away and how we action that, where we put them away and why we put them away in certain areas, how this can help us put things in the right place. We might cross stock, as in we might not put it away because we know it's going to go straight out the door again. We might send it to a QC zone because we're going to do some analysis or investigation on it, some checks. But then the other side of the equation, we've now got a demand for some goods out. Maybe, again, more than likely it's because you sold something, the customer wants it. But it could be a transfer, like you've got to transfer it off to another location, another warehouse. It could be that you've got some purchase returns, like you can return this stock to a supplier. It's also a reason you have goods out. Whilst that sits on the purchasing world, it is stuff going out of your warehouse, not coming in. So as a result of all these, we'll have to generate some sort of pick to say where do I get my stock from, and a shipment to actually manage the movement of that stock out of the facility. So this is all the stuff the warehouse management solution looks after. And obviously across the top of that, as this is ongoing, there is a finance layer. There is the item ledgers, the value entries, the things that manage the count of the actual stock that you own or don't own, and the financial movements. That happens independently of all these things. And obviously at certain points, they'll trigger a financial transaction, and other points you might not. Just because you moved a piece of stock from bin A to bin B doesn't really have a financial impact for you, mostly. That's what we're going to talk about. With that, we shall move into software, hopefully. Okay. So this is Business Central. Hopefully everyone on the call is familiar with this, especially if you're one of the people that works at TVT. It would be nice, I hope. So we're in actually a role center here. So I'm actually logged in as a shipping, receiving, warehouse management system role. So I've got an overview of the warehouse side of the world, as opposed to a business manager role where I look at the finances. So you can see the main things I'm talking. This role center shows me is all things that are due to go outbound today, all things come inbound today, any internal activities like movements and those sorts of things. And across the top, I can access all my menus as normal. So we
Yeah.
thought we'd. Oh, go on, Claudia.
Yeah, so I was going to say, yeah, the idea here is that I'm, as the warehouse worker, I'm not interested necessarily in sales and purchases because that's someone else's job. When it's ready for me to worry about it, either I can pick them up or someone will send them to the warehouse, and then they appear on my tiles. So that's that nice segregation of
Yeah.
the finance side, the inventory side, and the warehousing side.
Yeah, and and back to your point, Claudia, about integrated system as well. Obviously, the vast majority of these tiles, the shipments, the picks, the post shipments, the receipts, the movements, are all that kind of pure warehouse activity. But it does also, I can see from here, here's my sales orders, here's my purchase orders today, because it's useful as a warehouse person to be able to dip in and see what is coming down the line and what I've got to prepare for.
Mhm.
So let's have a look at the fundamental structure of a warehouse in BC. So a warehouse is called a location in Business Central. This is confusing. Amount of times we've been on site and we've talked to people that run warehouses and they say location. What they mean is the bin or the physical slot on the racking where I put something. Much like other bits of curious BC language, location for us is the biggest stock keeping location. Is the biggest grouping of stock. So more often than not, it represents warehouses, physical warehouses. Obviously, we have locations for things where, for example, if we transfer stock while it's in transit, it needs to be in a location, it needs to be identified. It's not now in your warehouse or their warehouse, it's somewhere else. So you will have locations that represent kind of in transit. But fundamentally, for what we're talking about today, a location is a physical warehouse. And it's a big thing, I think, that the warehouse setup in BC should represent your physical reality as much as possible. Whilst you can have virtual locations and these sorts of things, I mean, it's all virtual, obviously, just on a computer screen, right? More often than not, we've tried to keep the location setups and the warehouse setup in BC representing physical reality. So if my location is my warehouse, I can have an address and I can have some setup, and we can configure all these things. The big one we're talking about here is directed put away and pick. This is basically the flag that turns on a lot of this functionality. But we won't go too much into the setup. The thing I want to talk about is we have a location, a warehouse. Inside the warehouse, much like our diagram here, we have a receipt zone, we have some pick zones, we have some shipment zones. Those two are represented in BC. So here are my zones within my warehouse. You can see I've got operations for some QC and some production, but fundamentally I've got my receiving zone where I receive stock into, shipping, picking, and bulk storage. Those are the main ones we use. And those are controlled. Actually, the zones really aren't the major piece here. The thing is the bin type code. The zone has a bin type code. So all the bins, we'll talk about what bins are in a minute, all the things, all the areas within this zone have certain properties. So if I look at the bin type code of receipt or receive, 4 simple flags. Every bin type has 4 flags. Can I receive into it? As in, can I post stock directly into it? Can I ship stock out from it? Can I put things away into it? And can I pick from it? And obviously, for my receiving zone, I can receive things in it, but I never want to ship directly from it. Cross stocking's a different conversation. I don't want to put things away into it. I don't want things left on the floor at my receiving bay. I want to put them away somewhere else. So if I look then at my picking zone, and look at the setup here, I can see this one. I can never receipt into my pick bins. I can never ship directly from them, but I can put things away into them and I can pick from them.
Can you remove
Base-
the filter from that list? So if you go into the bin type codes, select from full list. Yeah, there you go.
So there you can see the different setups. So obviously we've got put away. So this is probably bulk storage. I can put things away to here, but I can't ever pick from them. They're in an area. I'd need to move them from there to my pick face to be able to pick. So, yeah. Interesting, QC, you can't do anything to a QC zone. That's just things you manually move things in and out of. You never want to actually automate processes into those. So these are the bin types. Then within, so we've got our warehouse, our location, our zones are zones, and then within the zones we have bins. This is a very good one. Let's go and look at pick bins. And these are my individual bays, bins, whatever you want to call them, locations within my zone. So I can't even count them. I have, well, 4 levels, each with 3 bins within them. And they each carry my bin type to decide what they can do. And this thing's quite important here, this bin ranking. Later on, we'll talk about why did it tell me to put the stock there. Bin ranking is a big factor in this. It decides that this is my most favorable bin. It's probably the one right at the front on the floor. And this is my least favorable. It's probably right at the back, quite high. So when we're looking at how we want to fill our warehouse, I want the system to populate our warehouse with stock. One of the factors it uses is bin ranking to decide where it puts things.
So yeah, your fast-moving lines might go into the higher bin ranking, and your slow ones that you go to rarely, you might put in the lower bin rankings when you associate items to them. Yeah.
Yep. And within that, as I say, associating items, we can leave these as, we'll talk later about floating bins, but you can also, on a particular bin, decide that if I go to contents, I can say I would like to put this item in this bin if I can. So I can say in my bin 1, I always want to put my Athens desk. So if I get a desk, it should try to put it into bin 1 as a fixed bin, essentially. So you can set that up, and that means that the system will default things to there. So you can drive manually if you want. When I receive this thing at this moment in time, try and put it in one of these 3 bins because I've decided I want to group those things together. So contents not only shows you what's in there, but also shows your preferences about what I want to drive to that bin.
Well, we do have a question in the chat quickly.
Yes.
They're saying that they don't use zones, but could this be a way of receipting stock that they don't want to sell yet, but need to receipt as part of a PO?
Yes. So you can use a zone. So zones really, all zones do is drive a template onto the bins within them. So the zone, you don't receipt into a zone, you receipt into the bins within the zone. And really what it does is it drives defaults down to the bins. So yeah, you could set up a bin type code of receipt only and have some bin set up in a receiving zone called, stock I don't want to sell yet or hold. Set that up as a receiving zone and receive directly into it. Leave it as a bin type that doesn't allow picks or anything like that, much like another receiving zone. So you set up the bin type, assign that to those bins, and then yeah, you would be able to say this stock's sitting here and no one can touch it. Basically, it's not available for pick until it's moved out of that receiving area.
Just quickly a note on zones. If you're using inventory warehousing, then you can assign zones, but they don't have this functionality behind them. So you need the full WMS or this extra functionality that we're looking on screen here to work. So just be aware of what type of warehousing you've got set up.
Yeah. In which case it would become more like a tag, a note to say they are in this zone, but it doesn't affect behavior essentially.
But Paul, just a quick question. When you receipt goods, you can't pick them, can you?
So no. The way
to put them away.
Let's go through the process actually. So yeah, so it's a fair point. We're going to receipt some stock. Stock that's receipted essentially is treated on the floor in the receive bay. You've got to do something to put them into a different location to use them. You've got to put them away. So let's look at that. Let's talk about receipting stock. So I've got some items set up in this system. Let's pick up the items. So I've got some welcome memorabilia. And against these items, I've got some purchase orders. So if I go and look at my purchase orders, I've actually got 3 purchase orders sitting here ready to deal with. Now, there are various different ways. So this is, sorry, I should say, the segregation of duty. The purchase order is the thing that agrees what you're going to buy from your supplier. It's all about money and when and how much and why and all those sort of things. It's responsibility of your procurement teams usually. But that is different from how am I going to manage this stuff into my warehouse. From when you set up this way of working the system, essentially you segregate that duty. The buying team agrees what they're going to buy, when it's going to arrive, how much you're paying for it, all the commercials of it. And at some point, you need to create a thing called a warehouse receipt. The warehouse receipt is the document that represents that purchase or that stock that's coming in through the door to the warehouse system. So for now, if I come back to my roll center, I've now got one inbound arrival. I've got 3 purchase orders, but only one of them has an arrival due in. So this then is my warehouse receipt. It has lots of the same information fundamentally or structure as a purchase order. The big thing is there's no money on here. The idea is this isn't a financial document, it's an inventory document or it's a stock document. And the other thing to note is a warehouse receipt can be for multiple purchase orders. Or it could be a receipt for 5 purchase orders, 2 transfers, and something else, a return. The idea is the warehouse receipt represents usually the ASN, the shipment notice, the van arriving. You want usually a warehouse receipt to represent the physical thing that's going to bring that stocking together. So a warehouse receipt isn't one for one with a purchase order, although it can be. Often you'll have multiple purchase orders on one warehouse receipt. Now, so now I've got my warehouse receipt. Sorry, it's also worth saying, I think I was points earlier about due dates and these sort of things. This is usually your list of your calendar as well. This list, when we've got more in it, represents your calendar of when things are arriving in my door, what's due in tomorrow, that kind of replacement for the the whiteboard you have that tomorrow this van's arriving. Let's fast forward a little bit. Stock arrives, the van arrives, we're going to book it in. We'll go through the normal processes of checking it off and checking the paperwork. And the point that we're happy that this stock is going to arrive, or we are going to accept this stock, we post the receipts. Now I'm going to do this from within Business Central, but it's worth saying that often you'll do this on the mobile device. I'll show you that you can do it, but we'll do this from Business Central. We often see that the receiving bays have computer terminals set up, screens and keyboards and mice for doing this. Other people do it on a handheld. But I'm going to post my receipt. At the point of posting my receipt, it tells me, in this configuration, it's created a put away. We'll come to that in a moment. From my perspective, that stock is now sitting on the ground, probably, or on a pallet in the receiving bay. But what I wanted to show you was what happens to the system. So if I go back to my item, I've now got inventory. The fact that I've not put it away and it's not in a pickable bin, it's not been organized, it's sitting on the ground, is irrelevant to the financial side of the system. If I go and look here, my item ledger entries, for all intents and purposes, it says I have receipted this. It cost me this much money. It is in my inventory. I do own it. There is no more transaction now until that stock is consumed on the other side.
And from the purchaser point of view, if you go and look at the purchase order, it'll tell you that X quantity has been receipted. Yes. So the purchaser knows what's happened in the warehouse as well.
So if I go look at the first one, they can see here that I have received 2 of those. And if I drill down, it'll show me again the posted purchase receipt lines. So it's the same as if you didn't have warehouse internal at all, you've now receipted the stock. But what's interesting is from a warehouse perspective, there's actually a ledger underneath the warehouse entries as well. So a total separate ledger. This is usually represented as resulting bin contents. So if I now go to that item and look at the bin contents for it, so I've gone from, it's worth noting to an integrated system, I've gone from the purchase order, I can go directly to the item and from there go to my warehouse tab and look at bin contents. We'll see that that is now saying I have 2 of these. I do have 400 in the warehouse and they are in pallets. I receipted actually in pallets, not in pieces, and they're sitting in this bin in my receipt bay. So that bin is where they're sitting. I now know where they are. They're not pickable. I can't ship them out. If I try and create picks for them, the stock isn't available, but it is owned by me.
Paul, we've got a question.
Go.
Can we add batch ID and expiry date on PA receipt via Tasklet?
Yes. That's the answer to that question. Yeah, I said at the start we did a very simplified version. I didn't put all lot tracking and batch tracking on this, and because it takes time. But yeah, you totally can. Let's. You can do that through. You can do it through Business Central and also through Tasklet. Tasklet basically supports all the functionality of BC warehousing and a bit more, to be honest. Speaking of which, let's switch over to Tasklet. Oh, connection lost. Let's hope I can reconnect to my Tasklet device. So this is Tasklet. I've got it in my hand. I don't know if you can see it on my face, but this is a representation of it on screen. And you can see it supports all the various warehouse activities. So I've done receipt already, so I'm not going to do that again. But now I've got to put my stock away. So I'll go to my put away, and I've found there is one put away to do. Now, the way this system's configured at the moment is one receipt, one put away. You can do this as batch and wave put aways and all this sort of stuff, but we've got a fairly simple setup. One receipt, put away that stock. So I've got my put away to do. On here, it'll tell me I've got 2 products that have been receipted, 2 pallets, one in the home shirt, and I need to take that to W01001, that bin, and my supporters football needs to go to bin 3. Just to show you what that does in BC, if I go to my put away, because it looks a bit different in BC. So in BC, you can do put aways. I could register this whole put away from here, but note here, in Tasklet, I've got 2 things to do. I've got to take my English shirt, put it into bin 1 and put my ball in bin 3. In the Business Central view, this actually splits those into 2 actions. I need to take my home shirt out of the receipt bin, and then I need to place it into the destination bin, and the same for the football second line. So BC separates these 2 actions: take it and place it, and you can register those independently. Where Tasklet simplifies that view for you. The assumption is if you're doing a put away, you'll know where you've got the stock from, but that's an option you can turn off. The big reason, or one of the big reasons people use Tasklet is it runs on a device. It runs on Android devices. So I've obviously got a Honeywell device here, but Zebras and all those sort of things are the same. There is a list of approved devices we can provide you. The reason people use it is because it integrates with the barcode scanner. So now if I go, I have, again, some barcodes here, which you might not be able to see, but I can scan. So I'm going to scan the barcode. And by scanning my barcode, it found my ball. So notice I didn't have to go and select it. I can just scan the barcode of the thing. It finds it in the list. So that's my item. And it's telling me I need to place it into bin 3. So I'm going to scan the barcode for bin 3. And the last thing, I've got this configured to actually confirm the quantity as well. So the count of how many I moved. That's configurable. You can turn it on or off. In terms of lot and batch scanning, if you've got GS1 barcodes in particular, you can embed the batch codes and other tracking information into the barcode. So that pure barcode scan will pick up the item and assign batches and those sorts of things. Or if you don't, it'll just ask you what the batch codes are. Or you can scan another barcode for batch tracking. So that's that one. You can see I did my ball first. I did them out of order, but that's gone green. And now I need to do my home shirt. So I'm going to scan that one. There we go. And that one goes into bin 1. And I've got 2 of those. And I'm going to say yes. At that point, I've done my put away. Press yes. And now I've put my stock away. Great. So I've got nothing else to do. That was an easy light shift. If I come back into BC, I should notice all my put aways are done. Just showing you then, if I come into my stock and look at my items, I'm going to have not enough stock here, are we? So my football now still shows I have 120 inventory. Nothing's changed. There's no financial impact of putting stuff away. But if I go to my bin contents now from within BC, I can see it is now sitting in the pick face in bin 3. And the question you should all be asking yourselves is, why did it pick bin 3? And the answer is just mysticism, basically. No one knows. Magic. Some sort of, yeah. Praise the gods of bin selection. No, there's obviously, computers are deterministic. There is setup for this. Coming back to it, we talked about, right at the start, we talked about bins and locations. So if I go into my zones and look at my pick bins, it knew it needs to put it somewhere that was pickable, actually no, it needs to be not pickable. Sorry, it needs to put it in one of the bin types that allowed put away. So it looked at my all bins that are type put away or put pick, and then it used information on there. So we've got bin ranking, cubage, and the bin content. So it might have picked bin 3 because it was the a high ranked bin. It might have picked bin 3 because it had space in it. All that decision making is done using a thing called a put away template. So we have lots of facts. We know the volumetrics of the item from the units in that unit of measure. So we know how big a pallet of those shirts were. We know how big our bin is in cubic capacity. We know what priority our bins are. We know we might have previously said, I always want to put footballs in bin 3. All that is actually consumed by a thing called a put away template. The put away template uses that information here and runs through a sequence of basically try to find the best bin. Now, you can configure these however you like. You can have different put away template configurations for different types of product, but fundamentally, these are the options and the normal routing through it. What these ticks say is it's going to try and find a bin that matches all the criteria of line 1. So that is, first, find a fixed bin. Have you named a bin for this item? If so, is it for the same item? That's probably quite important. Fixed bin for this same item in the same unit of measure. I want pallets with pallets and eaches with eaches. And my bin has got less than the minimum quantity because I can set on a bin contents. I want to hold at least 10 in this bin. If I find a fixed bin for the same item in the same unit of measure with less than the minimum quantity, that's where I'll put it. If not, I'll look for another fixed bin for the same item in the same unit of measure that has more than the minimum quantity. Or I don't care if it's not the minimum quantity. I'll keep filling one up. If I can't find a fixed bin, have I got a floating bin, as in like an unassigned bin, that's already got some of that same item in it, in the same unit of measure? Put it there, so put like things with like things. Then in this configuration, I'm saying, if not, find a floating bin, so an unassigned bin that's already got some of that stock in it, maybe a different unit measure. If I can't find that, find a floating bin that's empty, just find an empty bin, and if worst case, just find a bin. And if all those fails, I don't know where to put it. And that's basically the routing. I saw a new post.
We do have a couple of questions. How do multiple people put away at the same time?
So you create a put away is assigned to an individual, but you can create as many putaways as you like, and we'll show you on the pick side actually. I could have if let's say I had a much bigger receipt and I've got 100 lines on it, I can use a functionality called a put away worksheet to generate 10 different put away tasks and assign those to different people. So then each individual is working on their own put away, but they'll have a limited selection of products, and you might route that by the product or where it's going or some sort of other consideration. So you create multiple putaways for one receipt, or you could have multiple receipts and multiple putaways, like a many-to-many kind of thing. So you assign different putaway like lists to different individuals. What you can't have really is one big putaway and 2 people working on it. That's probably not best practice.
I think you've answered the second question, so all good.
Oh, I didn't see a second question. Cool. Right. So now my stock has been put away. I should say all that setup, by the way, which put away template is driven from the item. So on a particular item, there is configuration as ever. And you can see here, I'm using the default put away template, which is standard for this system. I can change it. I could say, no, I don't ever want these next to each other, or I want a different routing through that. Find fixed bins only, like don't suggest a bin unless I fixed it, that sort of stuff. The other one that's worth noting here is warehouse class. So if you've got some restrictions on these need to go into cold zones or restricted areas for, controlled substances, that sort of thing, you can specify that on the item and then specify bins with warehouse classes, and then it will drive. You can only put things that need to go into cold bins, for example. Cool. I'm looking at the clock actually running. So now I've got some stock in. I'm actually going to, because I should have done it earlier, I'm going to quickly cheat and create a warehouse receipt for my other stocks, because I should have done this earlier. So let me just create a quick warehouse receipt. Ignore me here. And this is just a really quick process to go and grab everything else, post it all into stock. That'll create one big put away, and I'm then going to go register my put away.
This is the other way the warehouse might work, is the warehouse pull in the purchase order details rather than the purchaser pushing the details into the warehouse. So it's kind of a decision how you want your warehouse people to work.
Yeah, I did that really quickly because I'm looking at time and we want to move
Yeah.
on. But yeah, exactly that. The way I did that, instead of going to the purchase order and saying, create me a receipt, I went to a receipt and said, grab all the things that I think should go onto this receipt. We'll show you a very similar process in shipment. Let's do that. Let's talk about warehouse shipments. So now I've got all my stock in because I waved my hand a little bit and booked it all into stock. Now let's ship it out. So in this scenario, I've got quite a few, well, I've got a few sales orders that all need to go out the door. Again, these are the financial, commercial agreements to sell something to someone or to ship it out to them. We have a separate document for shipping things out. Now, much like I did the simple warehouse receipts, I could go to a sales order and create a shipment for every sales order. I could push that, the sales team could do that from their sales order and basically create the entry on behalf of the warehouse team. But I actually want to show you the other way. So here, instead of the sales team pushing to the warehouse, this is the warehouse team being in control and deciding what they want shipments to be. So I'm going to create a shipment, and I'm going to prepare this by pulling together a bunch of different sales orders that need to go out today. Now, a common way to do this is to think about vans that are going out your facility. So a good example is often you've got couriers, or carriers. That the 4 o'clock the DHL van arrives, so we need to prepare all the stock for that DHL van. So I can use this idea of getting using filters to get source documents. This is a configuration that says, if I look at the modifier here, I want to find all orders that match any of this criteria. So actually, all documents, they could be sales orders, returns, transfers that match this criteria. I've got a real simple one, which is 4 p.m. run is anything that's got the shipping agent code DHL. So on the sales order, we've said this is going via DHL. I could also be filtering it by particular customers, or if I'm doing transfers, particular destinations, like we do the run to the main warehouse at 3 o'clock. But this criteria we can then use to decide what's going to go onto this shipment. So I can run that. And now I get, see here, if I make this a bit bigger, I get a lot of different lines from lots of different orders. So this is sales order 1, this is sales order 2, this is sales order 4, 6, and 8, all on one shipment. Because from a warehousing perspective, yes, they are going to go to different customers at the end of the day, but that's DHL's responsibility. Our responsibility is to get them onto the DHL van. So one shipment represents multiple sales orders. I don't really clarify. The one complaint I hear about this is if you do operate in a one shipment per order perspective, the shipment doesn't carry the order details directly on it. So you can't go and say which address is this going to, because it doesn't know, because of this nature of it. Actually, technically, stock's going to lots of different destinations.
Yeah.
So we've got our shipment. I prepared that, and from but actually, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to create another shipment. So I've got my DHL. I've also got FedEx. So I'm going to pair that one. Same idea. In this scenario, I'm just pulling the shipping agent FedEx. They're doing a lot less. And I'm going to release these documents. So I'm going to release them. They are now expected shipments today. I've got 2 shipments, one DHL, one FedEx. Now, the next step of this is now I'm going to generate picks to get the stock out of the door. Again, I could go to a shipment, and from the shipment, I could create a pick for that shipment. But to the point I think we were asked earlier, well, I know how would I split the task up amongst people? If you do a single pick for a single shipment, you're probably going to assign that to one person. In reality, I want to assign this to multiple people. So to do that, we use it.
You could be picking at different times of the day, different products as well. It lets you really decide how you want the workers to go around the warehouse, given kind of availability and time.
Yeah, this is really when you get into wave picking, essentially, and those sort of actions. So we use a pick worksheet to do that. And again, the pick worksheet, so someone in the warehouse is going to decide, let me generate the picks now. So I can go and pick my shipments. I could just do it for one shipment, or I could do it for all of them. I actually don't really, I'm going to do a bit of a more location aisle-based pick run. So I don't really care if it's going to DHL or FedEx. I just need to be all picked. So I'm going to pick both of my shipments. This gives me all the things I need to pick. What's nice on this screen, it also tells me my available quantity to pick. if that item, for example, the Scotland scarf, is sitting in the receipting bay, you'll see that I've got a demand for 20 of them, but they're not available. They're sitting in a non-pickable location, so my available quantity will be 0. That would immediately tell me that I can't create the pick. I need to work out what to do with them. Maybe it's still sitting in the bulk for that sort of thing.
Before you create the pick, can you delete lines manually here if you need to?
Yeah, I can actually. So I could actually, let's say surprisingly, there's if I look at my item, the Scotland stuff for various reasons has become low demand. I'm not really rushing to get those out, so I'm going to delete those off my pick run and leave just the England items. So now, and I could do it just by directly saying, John, that football, I don't want to ship that either. So I'm going to delete that line. So now I'm limiting what's in my pick run. I could also just say, I don't want to handle any of those. I want to do 0 of those, or I only want to pick 4 of them, or whatever I might want to do. So I can control using the quantity handle or just by deleting lines. Once I'm happy with my list of the things I need to get picked, I can use the create pick function. And this is really, to your point, Claudia, this is where you get that power of divvying up the picks or designing the picks in certain ways. The big one here probably is often we see people doing this per customer. So you might do a pick run and divvy the picks up per customers. You might assign you can still assign multiple picks to one person, but they might be grouped by customer. Maximum number of pick lines, as in I don't ever want a pick that's got more than 10 things to pick because it's just inefficient. I want to be able to divvy my work up. The one that's quite common is sorting method then. Once I've decided I want to split my picks, how do I want to sort the actual lines on the pick? The most common answer to this is by shelf or by bin. That will then route you alphanumerically. Go to bin 011 first, then 012, then 021, and then 022. So that's quite a nice thing to consider. So I'm going to make picks of no bigger than 4 pick lines. I'm going to sort them by shelf or bin, so I get a nice pick walk. I'm not going to divide anything else up. Press OK, and then I've created my 2 picks. I actually got 2 that didn't pick, so there must have been an issue there. We'll worry about that later. But at this point, I've now got 2 picks. The thing to note here is I did say I wanted it to be only up to 4 lines. Because of the way we've stocked things, we've actually got things in pallets and the sales orders for pieces. So it's actually instructing from a business central point of view, it breaks that out. It says you need to take the pallet, place it back in as 200 pieces, take 10 off that and place 10 on, and then pick 10. So it's kind of doing that break bulk for you. You can turn that on or off. You can decide not to do it. But that's what it does. I can then assign this. So if you want to assign this to different people, I've only got one user here, so I'm going to assign it to me, but that's now been assigned and I can see when that was assigned. So if I want to do tracking of how quick picks are done, I can see my assignment date and time for reporting purposes. I can obviously register the pick from here, but we can do it from the mobile device as well. So now if I go to my picks, I can see actually I've got 2 picks. You notice they're actually on Tasklet. I've got this set up to be show me mine and unassigned. I can actually say only my orders, in which case I'll only see the things that are assigned to me. So there I've got my 1 pick. And from here, I need to go and take the goods. Now notice again in Tasklet, all that break bulk stuff is fairly simplified. It says go and take 10 England shirts from bin 1. So I can now go and say somewhere, I'm not going to do it all on barcode scanning because it's a nuisance, but I've got hopefully it's the right barcode. There's my 10 shirts. Which bin did you take it from? Scan the bin. How many did you take? 10. And that's going to, there you go. That's marked that one as green. I can, if I want, just register that at this point in time, or I can complete my whole pick. For simplicity and speed, I'm going to finish this pick off just in BC. So here I can go through and set my quantity handle and register the pick inside BC. I could have done it with the handheld, but I didn't want to go through scanning 15 barcodes to do it.
I think it's nice that you can do it from the scanner, register as you go, so it's kind of even more real time, so people back in the office can see exactly where you're up to on any particular pick. That's quite neat.
It also helps stock counting, because then you've got a really accurate representation of what's in the bin.
True.
If you get people to post as they pick things out of bins. I remember implementing a while ago hot counting, and we'll talk about counting in a second, but the idea of literally counting as bins are being picked from, And to do that, you do need people to be posting literally as they move things out of bins. So at this point, I've got my goods, my shipments are ready. And at that point, I can go and say, I want to ship whichever order it was I picked for. I can then go and post the shipment, noting that at that point, it'll post all orders that are picked, and it'll invoice them if I select ship an invoice. So that is then going and picking the sales order. You can see it's picking up multiple sales orders, going to the sales order, marking how much I've shipped, and posting the shipment out the door. At that point, I should be able to see that my items now have a stock transaction again. If I now look at this one, I've now got 105 inventory. The only things I've got from an item ledger perspective are my purchase receipt and my sales shipment. But if I look at my warehouse entries, that is where all the detail of all my movements and things like that sit. So that all represents the movements around between bins. And at that point, we've got stuff out the door. I'm conscious of time. We need to. We're going to talk about movements. I'm not going to go too much into movements, but there is the concept in BC of movements. So it might be that you want to do ad hoc movements, and there's a really nice button actually in Tasklet for this. So you can do an unplanned movement, as in I just need to move that from here and record it, or I might have planned movements. In which case you use a thing called a movement worksheet to plan your movements. Now, that could be just you've looked at the warehouse and you want to do some tidying up, in which case you issue some movements, assign to the handheld and say, go and take all this stock from here and put it there. But it's also where you do bin replenishment from. So as part of this, we have a bulk zone set up and we have a pick face. Based on bin rankings, we can drive it to say, if my pick face has fallen below certain levels, generate a movement to go and break bulk or take the stock from the bulk zone, put it into my pick face. So that's all done through movement worksheet, and there's a whole bunch of logic to that process.
On to very quickly on the theme of movements, if you have multiple warehouses, you can get the software to suggest movements between your warehouses, given things like sales orders in one warehouse that where you've got the stock in the other warehouse. So that would create a transfer rather than a movement, but it's that idea that you are still moving stock within kind of your environment.
Yeah, it's a worth note as well. I think that is one of the. I stated at the start that location should represent physical reality. You can set a location up as a. You could create QC as a location, totally separate stock, but it's a virtual location. The reason the reason not to do that, and I'm not saying there's a decision there, is if you ever move stock between locations, it requires a transfer order. You can't just pick. You can't do a pick or a movement to take from bin in location A and place it in a bin in location B. It requires a transfer, which requires a shipment on one side and a receipt on the other. So it is a bit more involved process. I can see a question, just because I was on that screen. Is there a way to shift an invoice as a default setting? And I don't know that. Claudia, do you know?
I've just Googled it because I'm not sure. I was going to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you, but I thought I'd Google it while you were talking. I've actually asked Copilot and it's given me loads of stuff, but I don't know. So I think the answer is we'll get back to you.
It never used to. I know it didn't used to be because we've definitely done a mod before to hide one of the settings. But it's a good question, actually. Yeah, we should know.
It says no. It says you can't. But I'm sure we have modded that very easily in lots of places.
Yeah, we've modded that too. Yeah, in various of the projects. So yeah, yes. So no, not by default, but it's an interesting mod. That'll be it'll be on the candidate to Bevica product release, necessarily said. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is stock counting, because that is where using the advanced warehousing functionality is different or shows a separation of duties. With stock counting with advanced warehousing turned on, you do a thing called a warehouse physical inventory journal. Now, it's a very complicated name for what really means a stock count. So the thing you do here is you calculate the inventory of the things you want to count. So I'm going to count all the pick bins. And I'm going to remember to give it a document number. You can set that up as a default. I just haven't done it in the system. This will tell me in my pick bins, these are all things I have. Now, it's worth noting that once you put a bin onto a warehouse physical inventory journal, by default, you cannot now pick from it. That bin is now frozen because it's really difficult to count a bin that's constantly where you don't know where people are picking and moving things around from it. So you do have to consider when you generate your inventory journals, your count lists, you are going to freeze those zones or that bin. You can do it individual bin level, so you can really be prescriptive and lock bin by bin by bin, or you can lock the whole warehouse by just creating a list of all the bins in the warehouse. But they do freeze the bins. As I said before, I've done a mod before to enable hot counting that kind of disables that, but it is risky, and you do have to really have people registering as they go. So the image journal tells me the bins I need to count and probably the stock I need to count. Now, what it's going to do, the way it basically works is it says the system thinks there's 382 of these home shirts in that bin. If on my journal I say there are 381, that means I've lost one. And that's basically the premise. The system is going to do some basic maths between what it calculated and what it counts, what you've counted. Now, one of the limitations of doing this inside BC is it shows you can turn it off, but it shows you by default the count, which means people often go down and do this, say, yeah, there was 382. I didn't count them, but it's probably right. Blind counting is a thing people often want. Blind counting is enabled by default on Tasklet. So if I release this now to my mobile device and go here, I've now should have under count, account order. This is my order to go and count things. And here I can see I've got to count England shirts and all the numbers are 0, which is quite nice. Again, you can flip this and show them the count, but blind counting is usually more effective. I scan the bin I'm counting. There we go. And I enter the quantity I counted, 380. And then I can register that one if I want to. I'm going to post that just because I'm not going to scan all barcodes today. So now I've counted that, I've got to go and count the next bin. The nice thing now, if back in BC, if I just refresh my screen with a little F5, I can see that one's been registered on the mobile, someone's counted it, and that's what they counted, 380, and they've lost 2. Now I can untick this and say, no, go count it again and go through that process. But at this point, I'm happy that we've done the full counts. We're going to assume they've counted the rest of them, or I can kind of shortcut that. And at this point, I then register my count, noting that I've lost 2 items of stock or a piece of inventory at that point. This is where the separation of duty comes in. If I go and look at that item, you have to bear with me that I can't remember which item it was. It was my shirt, I think. Was it my shirt? Wasn't it? Anyone?
I remember.
Anyway, yeah, 380. So in inventory at this point, it still says I've got 382 because at this point the warehouse has counted that I've lost one, but I haven't confirmed that from a financial perspective. If I looked at the bin contents for that item, so from a warehouse perspective, there's only 380. So there's now a difference between what's in the warehouse and what's in inventory, which is good. It means that if we now generate a pick for 381, the warehouse say I can't pick that many. But it doesn't mean you've yet accounted or agreed the financial implication of that loss. What actually happens in the background is it puts it into a hidden bin called warehouse adjustments. So if the warehouse does keep that ledger in balance, it's just moved it to like a holding bin that you can't really see. Now, to allow for that from a financial perspective, what we need to do is an item journal. So now if I can type item journal, I can do an item journal. This is usually the job of someone commercial, finance, those sorts of teams. And what they'll do is after the stock count is done, they'll run this calculate warehouse adjustment process. I'll run it for everything. At this point, ignoring the default line I had, I now have a negative adjustment of the England home shirt -2, and this is how much that cost me. So this is doing any costing methodologies you have applied, those sorts of things. Only when I post this do I get the item ledger effect of that adjustment. So now back in my item, I get now there's 380. If I look at it, I can see I bought 400, I shipped out 18 in total, and I adjusted 2. I lost 2. And if I want to give reason codes and those sort of things, that's the point at which I would do the reason codes. And that is how stock counts work in this setup. And with that, I kind of come to the end of the overall process. There's a lot more to talk about. In particular, things like carrier integrations, which are available and are done through third-party services. Envision have a really good bolt-on that we work with that supports integration to all the major carriers in UK, Europe, and elsewhere. Those integrate directly with Tasklet as well, so they'll be supported through the Tasklet processes. The other one that I like is license plating. If you read deep into warehouse nerdery, talk about license plating. That's supporting Tasklet, so you can configure license plates, which is where I receive lots of stock, I put it onto a pallet and I put a barcode on that, and now that I can now move that pallet around as one unit, and underneath it's moving all the individual products I said were on that pallet or that license plate. So that's really nice.
And routing is another one that's nice.
Yes, routing.
You have a shipment with lots of orders, you can send it out and it'll tell the driver the best order in which to deliver it, and then you can pick and put that on the van in the right order. That's quite common.
Yeah, you often do it off the shipment, so you tend to generate your shipment, you do it, your own van shipment run, and then ask a service like Google Maps or Paragon or those sort of things to order it. Other things is pick to tote. If you're doing any, when you're doing your pick run, instead of picking just to a big pallet, you are actually separating that pallet up, or sometimes even a trolley with literal tote boxes in it, and you're picking directly to individual boxes as you go. We often see that to simplify packing. Another one is packing benches, just listing off other things in warehousing. Obviously, I showed you the process of picking to a warehouse shipment, but often there's a packing process in there. So there are packing processes. Certainly, Tasklet supports a lot of packing processes to help you work out the individual boxes you're putting things in and the consumption of those. Yeah, and there's a whole cross-dock and QC we haven't really talked about, which is another process.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, there's quite a lot to it, or there can be. You can make this a real simple process where you just want to keep control of the individual movements in the warehouse, or you can make all these can be implemented at massive scale where you are going to full-on integrations and automations and those sorts of things. So it really scales from fairly small right up to massive. With that, I bring us kind of hopefully towards the end, given the time. So hopefully now you understand how the levels and structure work of the warehouse, how location, zones, and bins interact, how receipts work, putting things away, picking and shipping, an idea of movement, bin replenishments, those sort of things, and then stock counting, how it's split into 2 levels, and other things you can do with advanced warehousing.
Yep.
With that, any questions still outstanding? Speak now, or well, I say forever, or phone us when the webinar's over.
There was one question we didn't mention, but I answered it in text, so hopefully that one's okay.
Okay, cool. Any questions at this point? Any other thoughts?
We have.
Is there more?
No, it doesn't look like there's any more questions.
No.
Cool. Great. Well, our final ask for you is please share your feedback. This is with Microsoft. It really helps us out. And if you're good enough to do this, you can go in the prize draw for a £50 Amazon voucher or a donation to charity of your choice. But please, it really helps us out and understand what you'd like to see from these sessions, what we can do better, those sorts of things. With that, I shall. Any closing statements? All good? Brilliant. All right, with that, I shall let you all go and enjoy putting your air conditioning units back on if you're like me and now sweating. Have a lovely, whatever day it is, Wednesday. And yeah, we'll see you for the next one. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.